This video is going to cover the last part of Chapter 10, Lesson 1, and we're going to learn how to write equations of parabolas given parts of the parabola. It might be the vertex and the focus, it might be the vertex and the directrix, it might be the focus and the directrix. We'll be given different parts. So we're going to go through how to write the equations. So let's look at our first example. So in this example, we're given the focus point and we're given a vertex. Notice our vertex is at the origin, it's at 0, 0. What I recommend you do is draw a picture, graph your given information, and from there, you're going to be able to determine which equation you're going to be using. Now, recall when the vertex is at the origin, we had two options. We either had y squared equals 4px, and when the variable that's squared is the y, remember our graphs look like the letter C, and that's when the 4p, when that number was positive, it looked like a C. But when it was the backwards C, that's when this 4p value is negative. Then the other option we have when the vertex is at 0, 0 at the origin is the x squared equals 4py. And the non-squared variable this time will be the y. And again, this time our parabola goes up and down. So when it looks like the u, remember your 4p value will be positive. And when it looks like the upside down u, the 4p value is going to be negative. So let's go ahead and graph our given information so we can figure out which one of these we're going to be using. So I'm going to go ahead and graph my vertex. My vertex here is at the origin. And now I need to graph the focus, which is the order pair 2/3, 0. So I'm going to go over to the right to 2/3, and I'm going to stay on that x-axis. So I'll go like 2/3 of the way. Now, let me go ahead and do the focus in red, and my vertex is in blue. Remember that the focus is always inside that parabola. So this tells me that I need to sort of like encapsulate it. So I gotta surround it with my parabola graph. So this tells me I'm gonna be using this, and notice it's looks like the letter C. So I'm gonna be getting it into the form of y squared equals 4px. This also tells me that the number that's going to end up in front of x is going to be positive. So what I need to do right now is figure out my p-value. So I'm looking to find p, and remember p is the distance that the focus is away from the vertex. So in this case, I can just look to see how far away it is, and it's 2/3 away from my vertex. Now, what I can also do is I could always subtract the variables. See how these are the same? So I could go and look between my focus and my vertex, and the two numbers that are different, I could subtract them. So I could do 2/3 minus 0, and that's how I could also get my p-value. But I can just count the spaces. So my p-value is 2/3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to my equation, and I'm going to replace p with 2/3. So y squared equals 4 times 2/3 x. And now I just need to multiply the 4 and the 2/3, and that will give me my equation. So 8/3 x is the equation with a focus point of 2/3, 0, and a vertex at the origin. Let's look at the next one. Now, when you're doing the homework, your given information may be more than just an order pair. They may tell you that it's symmetric. It may say it's symmetric about the vertical axis. They may also describe it as symmetric about the y-axis. So whenever I see that it's vertical or symmetrical about the y-axis, Okay, so whenever the given information says vertical axis, symmetrical about the y-axis, this tells me that my graph is going to be up and down. So it's going to be either the U or the upside down U. And then what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and graph the vertex. Now this time they gave me an ordered pair that was on the parabola. So let me go ahead and graph my given. I've got the vertex, and then I need to graph this ordered pair, -2, 12. So -2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's just at the tippy top there. So I'll go ahead and put the point. Now, this is actually a point that's on the graph. So because it told me it was symmetrical about the vertical axis, so my vertical line, my vertical axis is the y-axis. So this tells me that my graph is going to look like this. So that's that half, and here's this half. So now what I need to do is come up with the equation. Now this time, I am not given anything about the focus or the directrix. I'm given an ordered pair. And this ordered pair, remember, when you have an ordered pair, it's x comma y. So again, my graph is up and down, so I know it's the x squared equals 4py. I also know my 4py is going to be positive because it's opening upward. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to replace the x and the y with this ordered pair. So I'm going to go ahead and put -2 squared equals 4 times p times 12. I'm going to be solving for p. -2 squared is 4. 4p times 12 is 48p. I'm going to divide both sides by 48. I can simplify 4 over 48, and my p-value is 1/12. Now, again, I want my equation to have an x squared and a y in it. So I'm gonna just now rewrite again the x squared equals 4py. This time I'm replacing the p-value. So I'm gonna put in x squared equals 4 times 1/12 y. I'm gonna multiply 4 times 1/12. This gives me 1/3, and that is my final equation. Let's try the next one. The next one is given a vertex and a focus. Notice this time my vertex is not at the origin. So this time, remember, this is H, this is K. So our two scenarios that we have when our vertex is not at the origin is we either have x minus h squared equals 4p y minus k, or, so that's the up and down, and then when it's the C, left and right, then it's the y minus k squared equals 4p x minus h. Remember, x is always with h, k is always with y. So again, this one is the up and down. When 4p is positive, it's up. When 4p is negative, it's down. And then this is the C when 4p is positive. And this is the backward C, opening to the left when 4p is negative. So now let's go ahead again. Let's give ourselves a visual. Let's graph the vertex. So I'm going to come over here to 1, and then I'm going to go up to 3. I'm going to graph my vertex right here. And now I'm going to graph my focus point. It's at -1, +3. So again, remember, the focus is inside the parabola. So this tells me that the equation that I'm going to be working with is this one. And this also tells me that my 4p is going to be negative. So let me go ahead and write this down. So I have I'm going to be using the y minus k squared equals 4p x minus h. So because it's opening backwards, I'm going to go ahead and add a negative sign in front of my 4p so I don't forget about that. I'm also going to replace my vertex. So I'm going to put in my h and my k. So y minus 3 squared equals 4p x minus 1. Now, again, I need to find my p-value. So I can do two things here. I could either count how many spaces away the red dot is from the blue dot, and you can count, and it's 2 spaces away. So this tells me my p-value is 2. Again, I can also come up to my given, and I can look at the 2 numbers in my vertex and my focus that are different, and I could subtract them. So I could do 1 minus negative 1, 1 plus 1, the negative negative becomes positive, and again, you could get your p-value that way. So now that I know p, let me come back over here. Let me rewrite this, but this time I'm going to put in the p-value. So I'll put a 2 in, and then I still have my x minus h, and my h was 1. And now I need to multiply these two, and my equation is y minus 3 squared equals negative 8 x minus 1. And that is my equation for this parabola given a vertex at 1, 3 and focus at negative 1, 3. Try the next one. We're back to a vertex at the origin, and we have our directrix at y equals 1. So let's go ahead and graph the vertex right here. I'm going to graph my directrix. It's going to be at y equals 1. So we'll come here. Remember, the directrix is always behind the parabola. So this tells me that my parabola is going to be opening downward. So I need to go back to my equations. So I know it's the x squared when it's up and down, but I know that it's opening down, so I'm going to put a negative 4p and then the y. Next thing I need to do is figure out my p-value. So I need to figure out the space in between the directrix and the vertex, and that's has a distance of 1. So my p-value is 1. So now I'm going to take that p-value, plug it in. X squared equals negative p. I'm going to need negative 4 times 1, and then put the y. Now I'll just multiply it, and x squared equals negative 4y. And that is my equation given a vertex at 0, 0 and a directrix at y equals 1. Remember, when it's y equals a number, this is a horizontal line. Let's try another one now. Still the vertex at the origin, but this time my directrix is going to be a vertical line. So this tells me that my parabola is going to be opening left or right. So let's go ahead and see which way it's going to open. And again, give yourself a visual. So I'm going to graph the vertex at 0, 0. And now I'm going to graph my directrix at x equals 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's my directrix. Remember, it's always behind the parabola. So this tells my parabola is going to be opening to the left. Again, I need to figure out how far away is my directrix from my vertex, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces away. So my p-value is 4. Again, remember, the p-value is a distance. Okay, so now I know that my graph is opening to the left, so it's going to be y squared. And because it's opening left, it's going to be a negative 4p. And again, my p-value was 4. So negative 4 times the p-value, which is 4. And then I'll put the x. I'll multiply them. And my equation is y squared equals negative 16x. Let's try another one. This time again, the order pair that's given to us is going to be on the parabola. Also, notice they're telling me that it's the vertical axis, so it's symmetrical around y. So this tells me, as soon as I see this, this tells me that my graph is either going to be up or down. But based on my order pair and my vertex, I'm going to go ahead and graph it, and then this will tell me which way it's opening. So again, let me graph the vertex. It's at the origin, 0, 0. And now I'm going to graph my order pair that's on my parabola. And it's the order pair negative 2, negative 2. So it's over here. So this tells me that when I go to connect it, my parabola is opening downward. So again, we're going to be using the x squared, and this time it's a negative 4py because it's opening down. Now again, I don't know anything about my focus or directrix, so I can't calculate the p-value yet. So what again I'm going to do is, this is x, this is y, in the point that's on my parabola. So I'm going to plug in the negative 2, negative 2 into my equation. I'm going to plug in negative 2 for x and negative 2 for y. 4 equals, and I'm going to go ahead and multiply the negative 4 and the negative 2, and this will give me positive 8p. I'm going to divide by 8. 1/2 equals p. And again, remember, p is a distance. So the distance that my focus point is going to be away from the vertex is going to be 1/2. But again, I'm writing the equation. So let me go ahead and rewrite this again. So x squared equals negative 4py. I'm plugging in 1/2 here. X squared equals negative 4 times 1/2 y. X squared, negative 4 times 1/2 is negative 2. And that is my equation for this parabola. Let's try another one. Again, we're given a focus and a vertex. The vertex is not at the origin, so remember that this is h, this is k. So let's go ahead and graph that vertex. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So my vertex is over here at 3, 2. And then I'm going to graph my focus. It's at 1, 2. And again, remember, your parabola is going to surround it. Now again, you could take the two numbers that are different, you could subtract them to get your p-value, or you can also count. It's 1, 2 away, so p is equal to 2. Now notice this is opening to the left, so the equation that I'm going to be using is y minus k squared. Again, it's opening to the left, so it's a negative 4p, x minus h. I'm going to go ahead and plug in my p-value and my h and k. So y minus 2 squared, my p-value is 2, my h value is 3. I need to multiply these two, so I end up with y minus 2 squared equals negative 8, x minus 3. We have one more example. Again, let's graph our given. So let's graph that vertex. It's at 0, 0. Oh, wait a minute. Be very careful. Watch. This is the focus point. It's not the vertex. So let's go ahead and graph that focus point, and then we're going to graph the directrix. And again, it's y equals, so this tells me it's a horizontal line. 1, 2, 3, 4. So here is my directrix. Now remember, the vertex is in the middle of the focus and the directrix. So I gotta figure out that my vertex is gonna be right smack here in the middle. It's 2 away from the focus and it's 2 away from the directrix. So my vertex order pair is gonna be the order pair 0, 2. Now, notice here, so the directrix is always behind the parabola. So this tells me my parabola is gonna look like this. It's opening downward. And again, my vertex is not at the origin. This is H, this is K. So I'm gonna be using x minus h squared equals 4p y minus k. So let's go ahead and plug everything in. So we already saw that to find that vertex, we had to put it in the middle, so p was 2, because it's 2 spaces away from each. So x, my h is 0, my p-value is 2, and my k is 2. I need to multiply. Now over here, x minus 0 is just x, so I'm going to change this to an x squared. And then it's opening downward, so let me put a negative here in front of this 4. So negative 4 times 2 gives me negative 8, and then y minus 2. So this is my equation given a focus this time and a directrix. Now, if you'd rather just memorize 2 equations, you can do that. Keep in mind that this x squared minus 4py, really what we could do here is just use this one, because if you noticed, when I plugged in a 0 here for h, notice it turned into this x squared. So even when our origin, our vertex is at the origin, and I plug in a 0 here for h and k, notice when I do the math here and here, what results is just the x squared equals 4py. So really, you could just use this one, and then when you're given the vertexes at the origin, notice it just simplifies back down to that. It's up to you. So that was the last example. Remember that you need to watch the words in your given. So we need to watch some of the words that are there. So again, remember whenever you see the word vertical, or if you see the words symmetrical, I think this is what it says in the homework, symmetrical about the y-axis. Both of these mean that your graph is going to be up and down. So it's going to be either the U or the upside down U. So that would be the x squared equals 4py, or the x minus h squared equals 4py minus k. When you see the words horizontal or symmetrical about the x-axis, this tells you that it's going to open left and right, or left or right. So in this case, we would have the y squared equals 4px, or the y minus k squared equals 4p x minus h. That would be the scenario that you would have when you see those words. And again, those graphs would either opening left would be the backwards C, opening right would be look like the letter C. So if it says opens to the right, we know it's the C. If it opens to the left, it's the backwards C. So the homework for this section is going to be page 900, and it's 31 through 42 all. In the assignment, I listed the even answers because again, I know you don't have access to the even answers. It's just the odds, so I did include it. You can just click on the link so you can check your homework. So that is it for section 1. This is the last part. So the homework is 10.1C when you look for it in Canvas. That's it. Remember to submit these notes to Canvas. There is an assignment.